I never seen you before. You're not Puerto Rican.
Is that okay?
This movie is a movie that redefines all movies. It's incredible, and you're all incredible, so congratulations. And I'm going to start with you, the queen, Rita. First of all,
well, you see, yeah, okay. All right, what can I do for you? Shut up.
What you have been doing for us for the past 60 years. I wondered if somebody had told you 60 years ago that you would be sitting with this cast in this moment. And I know you have said, I originally wanted to ask you what it was like to win an Academy Award, but I heard you say it's really about the work. So I want to know, working on this, how profound was it for you? Because Valentina has such a pivotal role in this movie. How profound and deep was it? How deeply did it resonate?
Can I explain briefly who she is so that the audience knows what we're talking about? Valentina is the widow of Doc, the man who used to run the candy store where the Jets hung out. Now, the question as to what? Huh? I'm old.
What was the experience? How profound was this for you? Like, how deeply did it resonate? The actual work. I heard that you made the cast cry in a table read when you sang a certain song in the film. And yes, everybody's nodding that that's true. Yeah. But then there's shots behind the scenes of you dancing with the Jets and the Sharks. So just if you can talk about that experience.
It's been the rarest and most sublime experience of my life. And that it would come at 90, because I will be 90 in a few days from now. It's sublime. It's thrilling, it's weird, it's there's something insanely strange and rare about doing a scene with Anita when she almost gets assaulted in the candy store scene, because I remember that very clearly, that I remember bursting into tears when I shot it, because it opened up so many wounds that I never even knew had not healed. So I have been through the gamut of every kind of emotion you can imagine. And then to be in it again and to have a role written by Tony Kushner, who I think is only brilliant and has made this in the best possible way, more clear, more socially minded film than it was before, is extraordinary. I could go on, but I know you would love to talk to other people.
I would love to talk to you for hours, though, as well. I'm going to go to you.
That can be arranged, but not today.
Okay, because I have so many questions. Rachel, your Maria, I think for anybody who's been on YouTube and has seen, some of the original productions, either in school or local, would say you were born to play this role. And I wrote down the words in the screening magic, because you are pure magic on screen. Just astonishing. But I'm wondering for you, because you did play this role before, how much working on the film version did Maria evolve for you? And who is Maria to you now?
Yeah, I mean, Maria was so wildly different from what I think anyone has probably seen her as before. You go back to the source material, she's Juliette Capulet, she's virginal and naive and doesn't really have much agency. And as she evolved in the 57 original play, the 61 film, she kind of remained that ingenue part that didn't have as much depth. And I know that it was very important to Tony Kushner to incorporate the historical context of what was really going on for her at the time. And I got pages and pages of backstory from him about her mother and her father and how long she's been in the country and who actually wanted her to come to the States. And that was actually Anita who convinced Bernardo to bring her to New York. And I just remember having this conversation with Stephen on the first day of rehearsals and saying, I just want to do a good job. And he said, are you scared? And I said, of course I'm scared. And he said, use that. And I did. And I think it made a world of difference. She's not sure of herself, but she is very strong-minded, and she's not afraid to stand up to Bernardo. She's not afraid to stand up to Tony. She's not afraid to stand up to Anita. And I think it's a really cool thing for young women to see in a Latina role that has constantly been seen as just a very silent, virginal ingenue.
I heard that you manifested getting this role. What do you specifically do to manifest? Asking for a friend.
I'm pretty sure the public just thinks I tweet and then it just comes true. That's really what it is. No, I visualize and I put good out, and I truly believe in the universe and putting good out and getting good back in and just sharing the love.
And a little bird told me that when you were just finishing Shrek the musical, when you got the role, can you just tell me about that moment where you said, "Can I finish the musical?"
Yeah, I actually just been cast in Shrek when I got cast in West Side Story, and it was my senior year musical, and that place, that school cultivated my love of what I get to do for a living now. And so one of the first words out of my mouth when Steven told me I got the part was, "Is it okay if I finish my senior musical?" And he moved the schedule around for me. It was very sweet. It was the most most highly anticipated High School Musical, I think, in New Jersey. So
I saw it.
yeah, Ansel saw
Oh
it.
my
Ansel came to
God.
see.
I mean, before she comes on stage, it's like a High School Musical, and then she comes on stage, and the energy in the theater is like, boom, and she's so big, and it's past the back row. And it was like seeing LeBron James, like the highlights of him playing high school basketball, where it's just like totally unfair, and it's like clearly he's gonna go dominate the NBA. That's what it was like watching Rachel do Shrek the Musical.
Thank you.
Wow.
Very sweet. That's my best review that I've ever gotten. I
You will
say.
forever be compared to LeBron James. That's the best analogy I've ever heard.
Never in a million years that I think I'd get compared to an athlete,
Yes,
but here we
yeah,
are.
Little height difference, slight height difference. Ansel, I'll go to you. I think one of the most important things in watching this film is you really have to believe the love story between the two of them, because this is truly what it's about. Everything around hinges on that belief. And when I watched the two of you together in that gymnasium scene, I had this moment. It reminded me of the first time, and hopefully everybody's had this moment in their life when you see somebody and you instantly know your life has changed forever. And I'm wondering how you two created that together. Like, how did you work on that, on creating that moment?
Well, I mean, we had a lot of time. I know that this isn't a love at first sight kind of thing, but we had a lot of time together, you know, mutual respect, admiration, and like, you know, time to bond throughout making, you know, rehearsal.
Yeah.
But also, you know, you have to also give credit to Janusz and Steven, and also the writing of it all, because the dancers in between you and the costumes and everything tells that story and makes you really feel that love the first time.
That's the romance. The romance is everything happening around us, truly. That's what makes it dramatic and dangerous.
But I felt like there was something, I guess this is just from me, from Tony, like in terms of character, when there's something about Maria that just feels like good. And in this world where like there's so much like roughness and like kind of bad characters and like a dark history for Tony, like he sees this girl and she's so clearly just like there's just goodness, and maybe it is also just the white dress. And then when they do like go onto the bleachers, like this is clearly like, this is what's going to turn everything around. This is what's going to lead to that path of goodness, because that's where Tony wants to go.
Now, did I hear that the fire escape scene you improvised? You weren't supposed to. Sorry, interrupted.
You weren't supposed to, oh no,
you were
go
supposed
ahead.
to climb up, but then you climbed up anyway.
It was just that when we, you know, they're always trying to be really safe and stuff. So when we were in Washington Heights and it was like the outside fire escape, it was like, don't start climbing it. But I couldn't help myself, and I loved climbing, so I just started climbing the fire escape, and then they ended up using it.
And that was my real reaction of being like, no. And that take is hilarious, and he just pulls himself up. It's kind of hysterical.
It is, because it's a bit of an unguarded moment, because so much of the musical is so like the scenes are so choreographed, and it felt a little bit raw and a little bit spontaneous. So I was happy to find out that was a spontaneous moment. Ariana, oh my goodness, your performance is extraordinary. And the America scene is something, first of all, the way it was shot, but you're dancing in it. And that's one thing that this film really got so right, is the athleticism of all of you and the dancing. What was most important to you about bringing to life this role of Anita, you know, with this fabulous woman sitting next to you? And I know you two had a lunch maybe at the beginning of filming. And what did you talk about? And then you had this amazing scene together. You had this amazing scene together that was, again, such a seminal moment in the movie. If you could talk about all of it, basically.
I was like, yep, let me prioritize those answers. You know, I think when I really think about, you know, what now lives on the screen, I would say I'm most proud that she is a very different Anita. Like our Anitas are not the same. Like they have the same characteristics. They both are women who know their mind. They have agency. They speak their mind. They have, goals, dreams, ambition, all of that. But we are inherently different Anitas. And I'm really proud of that. I would say that I truly enjoyed the dancing because that's what I'm built to do. I was built to be a triple threat. And to dance these glorious-
Quadruple threat.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't.
What is the fourth?
What's
Sparkling personality.
my sparkling personality and my humor? No, but I, Justin Peck and his team did an incredible job, not only paying homage to the original Robbins choreography, but to create his own language, his own curriculum of steps and moves. It is a full language, and you can see the through line through the movement that he created for the Jets and the movement that he created with the Sharks. It's really something to behold, and quite frankly, a Herculean task to do. So I'm really proud of what specifically you see in America, because it's a beautiful, beautiful portrayal of this community and the way that dance is used. It's just another way that the audience gets to know exactly who we are as Puerto Ricans, and I love that.
Yes.
And
only have
if I may interrupt 1 second, because
course.
it's so important. Justin Peck, for those who don't know the name, is the name of our choreographer. He's from the New York City Ballet.
Yes.
And imagine having to deal with the Jerome Robbins choreography and say, okay, how do I not top this necessarily, but how do I equal this? What do I do? I'm astonished at him. I think he did a genius job of placing his own imprimatur on the choreography of this astonishing movie.
I wanted to ask both Ariana and Rita, what did you learn from each other on set and maybe in that lunch that you had?
What did we learn from each other?
Not a damn thing.
I know. I have absolutely nothing to offer. Let's just be real about it. It's okay.
Well, it's a nice question, but really, to me, it's not a question that can be answered.
I would say for me, you lead by example. You just sort of are. You are this force of nature that comes onto a set and the way that you work. I learned a lot from watching how you work. Also, strong women in the entertainment industry can frequently be called difficult women for simply speaking their mind. And I really enjoyed watching how Rita navigates a set and how she communicates with a director or a DP when she asks for what she needs, and I think those examples are what, lead the way for change and getting women into positions of power, because we're not difficult. It's not difficult when you ask for what you need. It simply is,
Yes.
I'm very grateful for that example.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, I can only tell you that she is Ariana is a ferocious dancer in the best sense of the word. You saw it, so you know. She's extraordinary. And the truth is that she's far more superior dancer than I was. Because when I auditioned for this role, I hadn't danced in years and years and years, number one. Number two, I'd never done this kind of dance, which is, interestingly enough, called jazz. I was a Spanish dancer. I did incredible heel work and I did the arms and all that, but I didn't know how to dance that kind of dance. So, seeing her just absolutely revivifying all of this is thrilling. I love watching her.
I wake up to everything I know either getting sold or wrecked or being taken over by people that I don't like.
First of all, you two opposite each other. I was asking about the sort of the love aspect of this film, but you two are, of course, you're leaders of rival gangs. How did you two create those sort of moments? Because I think in the original, they talked about how both sides were sort of kept apart on set. How did you guys create that tension?
I think there's a love story here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Something we're not willing to accept. So we go through all that fuss and trouble.
Yeah, I'm a little offended, quite frankly. I don't know what animosity you are getting from this film, but No, I don't
I
know.
think for me, it was, I
It's
think
pretty easy, man.
it was easy. And I
I
think,
don't like you.
yeah,
That's the
it's
easy.
it's that easy. And I
Yeah.
think what helped a lot was that we had this ensemble backing us up, kind of like being there for us, and kind of guiding us through this journey of what we're supposed to do as the leaders of these gangs. I don't know, I remember when we shot the Rumble scene, which was like a whole week of night shoots. I just remember the intensity in that room every day, but it wasn't like I hated you or you hated
No.
me or the Sharks hated the Jets. It was just intense,
Yeah.
and we all were feeling these emotions, and we were all there in the moment,
Yeah.
present.
We
And
were all, I mean, we all knew that we were doing this thing together.
Yeah.
And I think like, especially for the Rumble, David and I had rehearsed this knife fight and like choreographed it for months now, and we had been working on it, and it was just like, okay, here's the moments of doing it. And I think I told you this, but it's like that moment. I know I'm like spoiling it for someone that has never seen West Side before, but like there's a knife fight and I'm like,
something happened.
bad things
Something goes
happen.
down.
And but there's that moment, when that thing happens and like we're looking at each other. And I mean,
It's like a realization of, wait, I don't actually hate you. I'm scared. I'm
Yeah.
scared of losing my territory. I'm scared of losing my family. It's almost realizing that it's not personal. We're both afraid, and this is how we deal with our fears.
yeah, and there was like this commonality and this
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
between the two characters in that moment, in
Yeah.
that particular moment. At least when I
Yeah,
was like
exactly.
looking at you in that moment, I was like, oh,
That's
I
when the
see.
love
Yeah.
happens. That's when the love happened.
Yeah,
That's when the
it
love
really-
couldn't be stopped
yeah,
anymore.
But it really was like an acceptance and
Yeah.
like, oh, I see you for
Yeah.
who you are. kind of
Wow,
thing. It was
amazing.
interesting.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, I'll
'cause
never forget that moment.
I never
Wow.
thought it was gonna end up being like that. It was just something
Yeah.
that happened in that moment, and we kind of just rolled with it because you had your realization, I had my realization, and we were just both like, well, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what our
That's-
mistakes have led us to.
Well, I had heard, David, for you, like I know so many people auditioned. There was like an open call. They actually went after you. You were like off the grid somewhere and you like came to like a Facebook message and they sought you out for this role. And then on top of that, you needed to gain weight. So you had milkshakes and fried chicken. And I want to know how I have your life. How does this happen? Like, how soon?
I have no idea. I think it's so hard to explain. It just kind of happened, just like it just kind of happened to you. I don't think any of us really thought that we would be doing this right now. And I think the opportunity presented itself, and we just gave it what we had in our hearts. And that happened to be what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And I think it's as simple as that, I don't think they were chasing me, so it's not about that. I think I was just so excited to be able to like start working on this character and start bringing this to life. So for me, it just kind of unfolded itself naturally, and I was trying to keep up with what was unfolding.
Mike, one last question before we get wrapped. I know you both talked about how the rehearsal process was the most beautiful experience of your lives, I think, and that intense, like the Steven Spielberg of it all. But the first day you filmed, after all that, when you actually, they said action for the first time, what was that moment like? Did it feel different than rehearsals?
It was an extension of, it wasn't actually like different. It was like, okay, now we're just going to be here and you're going to wear these things and we're just going to do what we've been doing. Which up to this point, we were just doing the work. We were just getting to know ourselves and our tribes and spending time with each other and doing our work. And so when it came to, okay, action, it was just an extension of that,
Right.
it didn't stop. That process didn't stop. That's how I
Yeah.
felt. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like for me it was a little bit different because I felt like I was definitely nervous until it was like, all right, action. And then once the action, it's like all the nerves out the window, all the worries out the window. I was there and I was present. And like, that's why I like when it should be like the opposite. I should be nervous when they say action, but like for me, I'm nervous in life. And
The
then
build up.
yeah, like I'm nervous in normal life, and then once they say action, it's like, oh, I can be now who I want to be.
Right.
So it's interesting. I don't
Right.
know.
If you go with him, no one will ever forgive you.
First of all, it's my understanding that you described making this film as the apogee of joy, something that you almost cannot put into words. Can you explain why and how that was? That it was your best experience since ET?
It was my best experience since ET, because on ET, it was a small family, and a family that there was such fidelity inside that family. I wanted to be a dad for the first time because of ET. But now being a dad of 7 kids and 5 grandkids with a 6th on the way, I found another family, only a very large extended family, a family of the Hispanic Latinx experience, a family of actors and technicians and artists in every single department. And it was a joyful experience to put so many dance numbers on the screen that made me feel, I mean, I probably dropped 25 years. I can't dance to save my life, but I was dancing inside every day on those sets with all those amazing performing artists, vocal artists, the art of choreography, the art of just such great actors. And I really felt that by the time West Side Story was over, just like I felt on ET, I did not want to do that last shot. I did not want to have to say cut, print, and it's a wrap. I'll tell you a story. On the last shot, Rita Moreno came to me and said, can I do the slate? Because I did the slate for the Robert Wise West Side Story. He let me slate the last shot. Can I slate your last shot? And I said, absolutely. But it was the last shot. And so Rita was standing by with the slate. I did the first take. She came and she slated it, but I didn't want the film to end. So I made Rita go out 14 more times unnecessarily to slate the last shot before I finally threw in the towel and said, okay, that's it, we're done.
That's
Which
amazing.
I never wanted to be done with that movie.
Wow. Well, I know the 10-year-old you was brought the Broadway album for the first time. It meant so much to you. After the last frame in the film before the credits rolled, it just said to Dad. Can you sort of explain that?
Well, that was to my father. My father loved West Side Story. He wanted to see the movie. He didn't live to see my West Side Story, our West Side Story. But he always asked me about it. And he was 103 and a half when he passed. When I was shooting the movie, when he was like 101 and a half, he was in a wheelchair in Los Angeles. I was shooting in New York, but he was on the iPad constantly on FaceTime, and they'd hold the iPad up and my dad would watch us shoot a lot of the scenes, and he just loved it so much. And I didn't get the film finished in time to show him, and he passed. So I thought, well, the next best thing I can do is dedicate it to my father, who I so deeply loved.
Yeah.
And that's why it says for Dad at the end.
Beautiful. What was the song that 10-year-old Stephen was belting out the most at the dinner table?
At the dinner table, I was always belting out the most Officer Krupke. And my mom and dad let me, they bought the album to play for me. And I memorized all the songs. But I'd sit at the dinner table with my mom and dad saying, my father is a bastard. But I would say bastard, it was an SOB. My grandpa's always plastered. Something's pushing T. My sister wears a mustache. My brother wears a dress. My parents were crying and saying, you can't say SOB at the dinner table. You can never say the word bastard again. And I would say, but Mom, Dad, you gave me the record. Why'd you give me the record if I can't say SOB and bastard? So West Side Story started a lot of rows in our house early on.
Oh my goodness. Watching this film, I was in awe of the shots. some of the camera angle was high, then it was low. There was a reflection in the puddle. I know you spend months planning these shots, and it's truly, I think you even bested yourself. But how can you talk about the complexity of it versus some of your other films? Is it more complex? I know there was a Temple of Doom opening, musical number, but how does it compare to like a sci-fi? Yeah.
A musical doesn't compare. A musical takes such collaborative partners. A musical takes a marriage between the choreographer and the director. A musical involves casting people who have to wear 4 hats. They have to be able to sing, they have to be able to dance, they have to be able to act, and they have to be able to exist without doing any of those 3 things and still draw your attention in stillness. It's an extraordinary requirement to be able to earn the right to perform in any musical, let alone West Side Story, which is why it took a whole year to cast the movie for me and for Cindy Tolan, my casting director. But I also found that a musical, just because of the idiom of that or the genre, it creates such a sister and brotherhood because we've worked 4.5 months in rehearsal. I've never done rehearsals on any film, let alone 4.5 months just to rehearse the dances and the scene study and to get the storyboards. I storyboarded every shot. And I also, on my iPhone, videoed and recorded all the rehearsals. And I got all my camera angles during that 4.5 months of rehearsal period. And I cut all my little iPhone videos together, put the music to it. And if I didn't like it, I'd throw it out and start again the next day. So I had a lot of rehearsal. So every time I set up the camera, that the camera was telling the story. It wasn't just because the shot was cool and because the angle up high was cool. It was because every shot helps to advance the story and create a deeper involvement for the audience to get emotionally into the storytelling. So I don't think I did anything in West Side Story with the camera that was arbitrary or that was slick. It all was in the service of the story.
1000%. I want to talk about the late Stephen Sondheim. I know you've talked a little bit about how you would look to him when he was on set to know if you got something right. I don't know if that was in rehearsals, and you would almost know more by his expression. Can you give me an example of that, or a moment that really, you got his blessing, how he felt about the film and what that meant to you?
Well, with the fact that Steve was with me every day during the pre-recording sessions, we recorded all the vocal artists, and Stephen was there at the recording studio, sitting next to me every single day. He didn't directly interface with the actors because that was Janine Tesori's job. She was our musical director, and he never interfered with her interpretation. But I would watch Steve's face because he always listened to the singing with his eyes closed, and he'd be smiling. And then suddenly he'd go, ooh, like that, because he heard not a bad note. Maybe he heard a pitchy moment, and that can always be fixed with another take. But he would hear an interpretive, something that didn't interpret the way he always imagined his words being interpreted. And he would always talk to me about that. And he would always say to me and to Janine, it's very, very important that the actors don't concentrate on their vocal performance. Just get them to concentrate on who they're playing, who these characters are. Because if they believe who they are emotionally, and if they get to know their characters deeply, the music will be second fiddle to that. Don't worry about the music. Just understand who you are. That was exactly Janine Tesori's entire philosophy too. Wow. So in that sense, Stephen and Janine were on the same page. But what an honor it was to sit next to Steve for 3 weeks. And then he occasionally came to the set and hung out with me. And he was such a friend. He became a good friend over the course of 4 years. And his sudden loss was a profound loss to all of us.
Wow.
We just didn't expect it. I thought he'd outlive my dad.
Wow. Before I go, I have sort of a two-parter as a last question. First of all, if in the future some director said, I want to reimagine one of Steven Spielberg's films, which film would you be most interested in seeing reimagined by maybe a future director? And also about the ritual, do you leave set a day early? Is that something I heard that you've done since Jaws? I don't know if that's true or not. Or if
no,
you
I know I used to leave the set a day early when it was just like a special effect going off. I didn't have to be there for, but I don't do that anymore. That was when that was in my youth, in my silly blind youth. But the whole thing about what was your question?
About a film of yours, if somebody was to reimagine.
A film of mine. I don't know. I would love someday to remake Hook and turn it into a full musical. Not me, but somebody else. And I wouldn't mind seeing if somebody ever remade without me, if somebody ever remade a film like Always. It was a love story that didn't get any traction, but I really it meant a lot to me, and I'd love to see that story, which was also a remake of A Guy Named Joe by Victor Fleming, and that was the original source material for me. Those are the two films I'd love someone else to remake someday.
Life matters even more than love.
If I'm not mistaken, you've talked a little bit about working with Steven and kind of being that fly in a wall. And you said you found it fascinating just to watch his process, from how easy he finds certain things to even the challenges. So if you could sort of allow us to be a fly on the wall in what you experienced.
Well, first of all, he's such an open-hearted person, and he always leads with his heart. And that's so evident when you first meet him. Clearly there's the kind of shock and awe you have to get past when you're realizing that you get a chance to work with this legend, but that goes away very quickly. At least it did for me, because he's exceptional at getting people to kind of just get on the same page and say, let's do something, let's try to do it the best we can. There are so many examples of watching him work that were just such a great education. For example, I remember we were shooting a scene. It was a little scene after Tony and Marina come out from behind the bleachers, and I think he had storyboarded it one particular way, and the way that we were going to shoot it that day was proving to be a little bit more challenging than he expected. And he just very matter of factly said, "Well, sometimes you think you know how you're going to do it, and then you don't know." And he just kind of had to do what he needed to do to get it done in that moment. And you just realize in those situations that these are just people who are so good at what they do and are dedicated to finding the right answer, and are not afraid to say, I don't know how this one works. And because of their skill and their desire to get it right, you just watch them get to work. And that to me was just a little thing that spoke volumes to me.
What was the best note he gave you?
Tone it down.
Oh, seriously?
in one scene, he's like, a little less. It was a big scene, so he was right about that. But he had all kinds of insight to Krupke that I used as cornerstones of my character. One of which was this idea of him constantly having an ulcer. He said, very early on, he said, I think that Krupke is duodenally challenged. And it took me a second to understand what he meant.
Duodenally.
Duodenally, yes, it means the lower intestine, and i.e. ulcer. So yeah, that to me, I think is kind of where his mind was in terms of setting this character up as being someone who's constantly not only at odds with the job that he had to do, but literally at odds with himself, kind of internally in complete discomfort about what was happening in his world. And the other thing he said, which is another great little insight, he said, I think this guy probably would prefer to be in the back room filing papers rather than out in the community, kind of on the razor's edge of trying to kind of, stop these warring, groups coming together, and always trying to kind of keep them at bay, and how exhausting that was and how scary and dangerous it is.
Wow. Those are, and it's interesting because when you're saying those are specific things that make your character fascinating and sort of set it apart and make it a reimagining of the original, being that you are so esteemed in the Broadway community. Could you talk a little bit about the fact that you are, with the exception of Rita, probably the most veteran actor on the set, that this is a lot of young actors that sometimes have never done a movie before, and just that energy, I think you've talked a little bit about it, being around those people that are on the precipice of this huge stardom and something huge, if you can kind of talk about that.
Well, there's one story that I've told a couple of times that I think exemplifies the kind of spirit that was evident on set. And mind you, I spent 5 days, when we were in the gym shooting Dance at the Gym sequence, which in my opinion could be a movie in and of itself.
Yeah.
So I felt so lucky to be just watching that every day. But you do have a lot of extraordinary young actors and dancers who haven't been on film. And I'm no expert in being a film actor. I've done my fair share of them. And I have an awareness of some of the things that you do and don't do on a set. One of which is it's not usual for an actor to go over to what's called Video Village and watch a scene over the director's shoulder. And it's kind of a no-no because that's their domain and that's where they get to paint. That's their canvas. And you kind of want to you don't want to interrupt that. But in this film, it was so beautiful because after all these big dance sequences, you'd have 30 young, extraordinary people who are just impossibly talented running over to stand behind him and watch what they had just shot. And at the end of it, everyone's saying, yay, just super excited about what they had just done. And that to me, I think it really is the lifeblood of this film. It was really evident last night at the screening. It was the first time I saw it. And we had pretty much the full cast there. But the sense of pride and the sense of accomplishment and ability, I can't say this enough. The dancers in this film, I'm astounded by what they've done.
Yeah.
So that is a little story about the community that we had making this film.
Was there a scene where I heard they were messing with you or something? Like it was either the Jets or the Sharks, and you were like, "Is this a gag?"
Well, no. I was convinced that Steven Spielberg had pulled all of the Jets aside and said, "Listen, whenever the camera isn't rolling, please bother Brian as much as you can." It turns out they were just naturally gifted at that. They were all doing their jobs very well, even when the camera wasn't rolling. We were all in character, and so. There wasn't a moment when someone wasn't poking me or stealing my baton or like untying my shoe or using my hat as a Frisbee. It was constant. And I think it really, really helped.
You feel that energy, and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff has been as fun to watch as the incredible film itself. Something that I talked to Rachel and Ansel about yesterday that I thought was really funny was that when she was cast in it, she was doing Shrek the musical in high school at the time and said, "Can I just finish it before we start West Side Story?" Having been Shrek, was that a good move on her part? And did you also say to Steven, "Hey, can I just finish this before I do your movie?" Or did you not dare?
Well, I was well beyond it. So I didn't have the need to kind of say, "Can I go back and sit in, makeup for 2.5 hours every day?" But interestingly, Janine Tesori, the composer of Shrek the Musical, was our music supervisor and worked with Rachel and Ansel and Mike and Ariana. And is an extraordinary, gifted composer and facilitator of performance. So, yeah, I heard that story the other night, and I joked that they wouldn't let me audition for her version. So unfortunately I couldn't play Shrek to her Fiona.
Did you do any of the numbers behind the scenes with Rachel? Did that come up at all?
No, but maybe that's the next version of Shrek is the live action version of just Rachel and myself doing it somewhere, maybe as a puppet show. I don't know. I got to think this out.
Okay. Being that you are such a veteran of Broadway, I'm going to ask a broad question, but what is Officer Krupke and the story of West Side Story meant to you as an actor and an actor of the theater over the years and the tremendous gift bestowed on you to play this beloved character?
Well, that's the answer. Part of my answer is in your question. It is a gift. It really is, because West Side Story for me and for so many people is a cornerstone of my experience of what it means to want to be a part of the community that makes musicals, that makes theater, that wants to pursue art in that particular way. And the standard is so high, the bar is set so high with, Stephen Sondheim's work, Leonard Bernstein's work, Jerome Robbins' work, Arthur Lawrence's work, the foundational element of it, not to forget William Shakespeare, on which the whole thing is based. So it's an extraordinary thing to be a part of this iteration where the history of it is so palpable to me. And that was evident last night with original cast members of the movie who were in attendance, which was really was special. And now I can say that I am carrying the baton along with the rest of us, the cast, to try to do our best to honor and create something new and exciting, which I think we've done.
I heard that Stephen Sondheim I don't know if you worked with him on set, but had some interesting notes. And sometimes Steven Spielberg would just look to him to get his reaction, and he would know right there by his reaction if they got it
Yes.
right. Did you have a personal experience with Stephen Sondheim like that?
No, I didn't get to cross paths with him on set, unfortunately. I had the honor of singing for him and in a concert in DC that Marvin Hamlish was the conductor for with the orchestra there. So I was lucky to have that little interaction with him. But yeah, I heard that story last night, and I thought that was really a great example of both men, in the sense that Steven Spielberg knew and was desirous of Stephen Sondheim's reaction to how things were going, whether it was a positive or a negative. And so he was a barometer that he needed and wanted there. And it's also a testament to Sondheim and his kind of, what I've come to learn, and I'm constantly learning in the unfortunate in his passing and sad passing, that he was such an honest and kind of undeniably honest artist, in the sense that what he wanted to explore and unearth was not always pretty, and I'm sure he was always very honest in his assessment of things as well, to everyone's credit, and to everyone's benefit. So yeah, that's a great story of two people kind of being in the boat steering together.